Behind the bright lights and perfect smiles of K-dramas, there is another scene where pain breathes and truth doesn't hide. This is K-drama. Today's story is about a father who couldn't see and a son who slowly began to lose sight too. But even in darkness, there was something stronger than light. The touch of a hand, the sound of voice, and love that never need eyes to find its way. (1995), a small villa on the outskirts of Seoul. A 6-month-old baby was crying. In the room, there was only the father. He fumbled around as he stood up. He couldn't see anything. His wife had left, without a word. She couldn't bear the reality. Her husband was visually impaired, and their son was born with poor eyesight too. So the father was left alone. A blind father and 6-month-old baby, Daegun. Just the two of them. When Daegun cried at 3 a.m., the father would feel around for the baby formula. He would boil water, test the temperature on his wrist. If it was too hot, he would let it cool. Mix the formula, test it again on his wrist. Only when it felt right, he would feed the baby. When morning came, the father would bath Daegun, fill the tub, check the temperature, carefully place the baby in, washing him with his hands. He never dropped Daegun, not once. He must be terrified, but he did it every single day. Neighbors also helped. I brought some rice and baby formula for you. The father would bow deeply. Thank you so much. When Daegun was 18 months old, a TV station called, "We would like to tell your story." Camera came in and their story went out to the world. The footage showed the father fumbling as he bathed the baby, fed him, put him to sleep. Clumsy but never giving up. There was a scene of them on a bicycle, Daegun in front, the father pedaling, even though he couldn't see. Viewers were moved. After the broadcast, calls poured in. I want to help. I want to donate. A concert was held. Donations were collected. With the money, they decided to operate on Daegun's eyes. The surgery was successful. Artificial lenses were implanted in both eyes. After surgery, Daegun saw the world clearly for the first time. His small hand reached toward his father. The father couldn't see, but hearing his son's voice, he smiled brightly. Daegun, can you see me? The father cried. Daegun grew up and attended regular school. He got along well with friends. He even won awards. Every day his father walked into school, holding his hand tight. Be careful. Okay, Dad. But in 4th grade, the school called. Something seemed wrong with Daegun's left eye. At the hospital, the doctor was grave. The artificial lens is damaged. He needs another surgery. They operated once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. By age 16, in his 2nd year of middle school, Daegun's left eye lost all light. Only his right eye remained, and even that could barely see. That night, Daegun sat alone in his room, touching his left eye with his hand. He felt nothing. only darkness. He cried for a long time, quietly, so his father wouldn't hear. The grief and injustice exploded in middle school. Why did you have me? Why do I have to be like this because of you? He screamed. The father couldn't say anything. He just hung his head. Dagon knew. He knew how much guilt his father carried, thinking it was all his fault that his son turned out this way. That's why he couldn't hate him more, and that made him even more painful. In his second year of high school, his right eye began to fail too. Another surgery, but it was useless. It kept getting worse. Fall 2024, the TV station called again. 16 years have passed. We would like to show how you're both doing now. The crew suggested, would you like to watch the footage from 16 years ago together? The father couldn't see the screen, but he turned his head toward it. Dagon watched with his right eye, as much as he could see. On the screen was a young father holding an 18-month-old baby, bathing him, feeding him, putting him to sleep. Every moment awkward but filled with love. Then the scene appeared, the bicycle scene. The father pedaling with Dagon in front, even though he couldn't see, even though they could fall. But the father rode anyway, because he wanted his son to feel the wind. Tears fell from Dagon's eyes. He couldn't hold them back. The father, unable to see his crying son, kept smiling it as he listened to the broadcast. He was worried his father might notice. Dagon cried quietly. Then he took his father's hand. For the first time, he reached out first, not just being held, but holding. No words were spoken, but through the warmth of their hands, the son's gratitude and apology seemed to flow. And then Dagon said, I think I was happy because of you. I never imagined. I'm so grateful for everything you've done. It moved me to tears. That afternoon, Dagon went into the kitchen alone. He took out a frying pan, kimchi, and the rice. The sound of frying, the smell of kimchi, the smell of pork cooking. It's ready, Dad. He placed the kimchi fried rice on the table. The father took a bite. It's delicious. The father emptied his bowl. Dagon watched faintly and smiled. Dad, you raised me well all this time. Now that I'm an adult, I think it's time for me to take care of you more. The father put down his spoon and squeezed Dagon's hand. Thank you, son. A few days later, Dagon took his father somewhere. They rode a bus for 2 hours and got off. Dad, be careful. Dagon held his father's arm and walked for about 10 minutes. Then they heard it, the sound of waves. The sea breeze blew. The salty smell. Did you smell the sea? Yes, Dad, it's the sea. It was the first time in his father's life he'd been to the ocean. They stood on the sandy beach. The wind blew, waves rolled in and out. Dad, the waves are breaking wide, the foam is sparkling. I can see a boat in the distance. Seagulls are flying. Dagon described the world to his father, what he felt, what he could barely see. The father listened. The sound of waves, the cry of seagulls, the wind, and his son's voice. Dad, when I was little, you tried to show me the world. Dagon's voice trembled. Now, I will show you the world, Dad. The father pulled Dagon's into tight embrace for a long time. A wave rolled in and wet their ankles. It was cold, but somehow it felt warm. The two stood there for a while, holding their own hands gently, facing the sea. The sun was setting. Dagon felt the light faintly. The father couldn't see anything. But they both knew how beautiful this moment was. I think this story isn't about blindness, it's about seeing through love. And maybe that's what vision really means, to recognize beauty even when it's dark. When I heard this story, I felt my chest tighten. Because my father passed away when I was 13, I don't have many warm memories, only the moments I was scolded. I still remember talking with a friend one day. I said, I hate my dad. And he said, I wish I had a father like yours, because his father passed away. And I laughed and said, then you can have him. I was only 12, but the sentence still stings whenever I think of it. As I grew older, I began to understand him. Why he was so strict, why he always looked so serious. He had to carry the weight of his family since he was young, fighting poverty, chasing survival, never having the luxury to rest. He always seemed strong to me, unbreakable. So, when I saw him start to fade from cancer, it broke something inside me. I still remember the way he used to eat, how he would rest his elbow on the table and leaning his head against his fist, because most of his organs had stopped working properly at the time, and even swallowing had become a battle to him. Every bite looked painful. Every meal felt like an act of endurance. By then, he spent most of his days lying in bed, too weak to walk, too tired to talk. One day, he called me over and told me to lie beside him. He reached out and held me from behind. His arms were trembling, his breath was shallow, and time seemed to stop. It felt awkward. He had never hugged me before. When he finally let go, I remember just feeling relieved. Finally, I could go outside and play. But now, when I think back, I understand how powerless he must have felt, how humiliating it must have been. Once he was so strong, and now he's trapped in a body that refused to obey. How unfair life must have seemed, and how sorry he must have felt for leaving us behind. When I heard the story of the blind father, I could see the same kind of pain, the quiet desperation to love anyway, even when you have nothing left to give. And I realized something. Love isn't about what we can give perfectly, it's about what we give anyway. Even when we are weak, even when we can't see how it will be received, we all have someone who showed us the world, even when they could barely see it themselves. Psychologists call this kind of bond secure attachment, a deep emotional trust that forms when love remains consistent through hardship. In Korean culture, especially among disabled parents, this is rarely talked about. But stories like this reveal the quiet resilience behind everyday survivor. There is also a cultural layer of guilt. Many disabled parents in Korea carry heavy shame, feeling like a burdens instead of caregivers. But this story shows the opposite: love that protects without sight, and a son who learns to see through gratitude. If life ever feels dark, remember you don't need light to see love. Just one small touch, one gentle word can illuminate everything. Remember, we're all going to die soon anyway, but until then, we are not alone.